Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of voice radio. So today, I am showing you a very interesting new Florges card, which is going to be coming out in the upcoming Sun and Moon 6 Forbidden Light expansion. Now, the official Japanese YouTube, I think it was the official YouTube anyway, just launched a little bit of a video. They do this. They do videos, and they're like, hey, here's a brand new card. It is... well, as I've already said, it is the new Florges. Huge shout out to Alex Piney, who shared a link to this and then tagged me in it. And I went to check the translation with Rappelmann TCG, as I often do. The good news is, well, they both agree on the particular translation. So we are good, ladies and gentlemen. So, let's have a look at what it does. First of all, it is a fairy Pokemon. That means that at least for a short period of time, you've got cards like Fairy Garden to give yourself free retreat, and Fairy Drop to do a little bit of extra healing. In terms of weakness, you're only really hitting against Dialga. Dragon Pokemon just are not big at the moment. It may well be the least played type out there at the moment. It's just not relevant. Dialga GX is seeing play in some of these Magnezone decks. So I suppose we can say that that's relevant. But honestly, ladies and gentlemen, that really is it. Now, in terms of weakness, being a fairy Pokemon, you are weak to metal, which I suppose the aforementioned Magnezone, and to be honest, any metal deck, many of which will be playing Magnezone, will be then going and hitting you for weakness. Good news is you have a resistance to darkness, which with Zoroark running around, that is huge. Now, you've only got 120 HP, which is incredibly low, so to be perfectly honest, it's not amazing, but what I will tell you is, it's not bad. It's nice having resistance. The one thing that I suppose does mean, Zoroark would usually be doing 120, with resistance would go down to 100, so actually, even though you've only got 120 HP, this will save a one-hit KO from a Zoroark, so scrap what I just said, the resistance is huge. And the retreat cost of 2 just plain sucks. Now, this is a stage 2 Pokemon, but I love the ability here. Once during your turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, put an item card from your discard pile onto the top of your deck. This, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely brilliant. Think of how much people love using cards like Puzzle of Time to actually reuse their resources. And then think about the kind of things you could reuse. This gets any item card back. So something like Crushing Hammer, as long as you can keep hitting heads on this, you can just keep having a Crushing Hammer every single turn. Now, I suppose you've got to hit heads for Florges' ability to get the Crushing Hammer back on top of your deck. Then you've got to hit a heads on Crushing Hammer to actually get rid of the energy. But let's ignore all of that for a minute. You could potentially have infinite Crushing Hammers here. And do remember that this ability will stack. So if you've got 2 Florges out, that actually gives you a 25% chance of getting 2 item cards back, and a 75% chance of getting at least 1, which is crazy good. I like this. I like this a lot, ladies and gentlemen. So, it's a fun ability, and you can reuse these item cards. And the thing about item cards is, item cards will do anything you need. Need a new Pokemon? That's alright, in comes Ultra Ball. Need to do a little bit of more damage to an EX or a GX? That's alright, in comes Choice Band. And even if you want to recover something like a Guzma, well, hang on a second, you can't just get a Versus Seeker back unless you're playing Expanded. But you've got Puzzle of Time, which will be able to search for literally anything to get back. This is amazing. The last time we really had a reliable way of using all of our item cards again was Lysander's Trump card, which literally broke the game, because it allowed cards like Crushing Hammer and Super Scoop Up to just be used every single turn. Now, this is not Lysander's Trump card. Just to be clear, I'm not an idiot. I know that Lysander's Trump card got all of your cards back, whereas this has a 50% chance of getting 1 item card back. What I'm saying is, remember what Lysander's Trump card showed us about getting items back. That is the top end potential of a card like this. Now, to really be using it like that, you need to have 3 or 4 Florges out there stage 2s, that's unrealistic, and you need to be hitting heads every turn on all of them, which is even more unrealistic. But there is potential here for somebody to use this ability. I mean, think back to something like Slurpluff, for instance. That was a card that saw a huge amount of play with Seismitoad. And what you would do is you would use Slurpuff, and you would use Tasting to draw extra cards, and then you would use all of these item cards. Now, to be fair, that was also with Lysander's trump card, but the theory still holds. There is a little bit of potential here. Maybe in Expanded, you play Seismitoad with something like this, so that while you're sitting there blocking your opponent from using item cards, you're also searching to reuse stuff like Crushing Hammer, and if you're in Expanded, you can use stuff like Hypnotoxic Laser. Now, the other thing we do need to mention here is that this doesn't actually put the card into your hand. This puts the card on top of your deck. So that means that you do get to draw it the following turn, unless your opponent plays something like an End to disrupt you. But you could always be playing something like an Octillery, for instance, and then you put it on top of your deck, and then you guarantee that you're going to draw it with the Octillery. There is, I don't believe, any argument that this is a good ability. The problem is, it's on a stage 2. And the card that I always think about in these lines is the Ludicolo from Primal Clash. Not a card we talk about very often. A very under-the-radar card. Ludicolo's ability was a Pokemon capture. Flip a coin, if heads, pull one of your opponent's Pokemon into the active. But it was on a stage 2, and nobody wanted to evolve up a stage 2 just for that. I feel the same way about Florges. If this ability was on a basic, everybody's putting one on their bench every game. But it's not on a basic, it's on a stage 2, which means lots of room in your deck, which means several turns to evolve, which means playing rare candy probably if you're not already, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting to get annoyance. A Zoroark deck would love this. Will they find room for it? The attack here is also kind of interesting though, although it will be more interesting in the future. For 2 fairy, 1 colourless energy, which makes me really sad because that means no double colourless energy, you do 70 damage, meh. But during your next turn, it doesn't take any damage from your opponent's dragon Pokemon's attacks. That, ladies and gentlemen, is incredibly handy. Or at least it would be if there were any relevant dragon Pokemon in the format. Now, like I said earlier, Dialga is starting to see a little bit of play, but that's about it. It's quite expensive as an attack. Now, in a Gardevoir deck, you do, of course, have Secret Spring, which gets the energy on there more easily, but then you're teching in a stage 2 into a Gardevoir deck. It's a little bit clunky, to be perfectly honest with you. But immunity from dragon Pokemon? There will come a time, you imagine, when dragon Pokemon are good again. Sooner or later, there's got to be a good dragon Pokemon released. When we get to the stage where a good dragon Pokemon is released, this attack becomes a million times better, because now you are protecting yourself against dragon Pokemon. The thing is, it's a fairy Pokemon that's going to be played in a fairy deck. So all of these dragon Pokemon are going to be weak to fairy. So there's a strong argument here that you don't even really need to be having immunity to dragon, because you're going to be hitting all those dragon for weakness anyway. Either way, if we ever end up in a format where there's some really good dragon Pokemon, this is absolutely an attack to bear in mind, because you can block dragon Pokemon from damaging you. That's pretty cool. Either way, I think Free Wassy seems about fair here. Remember my rules. Free Wassies means put a copy in your binder. You might want to use it at some point in the future. That's what I feel about Florges. I love the ability, but it's on a stage 2, which means it's going to be really awkward to get into a deck. I love the attack, except there's no dragon Pokemon around at the moment. And even the ones that are weak to fairy, which kind of makes it a little bit irrelevant. But still, there is potential here. There are interesting things afoot. For that reason, I think it's one of those, put it in your binder, keep it in mind, it might be relevant in the future. But ladies and gentlemen, You know the deal. I want to hear from you guys with all of this in the comment section. Tell me what you think about this card. Do you think it's going to see any play? What do you think it would pair well with? Go nuts! But be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and so on, you can do so by going to patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves. Until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.